In case you are unfamiliar with the story that's happening, there was this Saudi journalist by the name of Jamal Khashoggi who has been in the news because he went to the Saudi consulate in Turkey and disappeared. He has not been seen since he entered the building, and there are reports that he was actually dismembered by members of the Saudi government and has not been seen since. So now you have U.S. senators, including Connecticut's own Chris Murphy, where WWE headquarters are in Connecticut, saying that the Crown Jewel show should be canceled. They should not have this. And of course, WWE made a small statement Friday morning saying they are monitoring the situation. Well, 4 hours before we went into recording this podcast, we got a report from CNN saying that Khashoggi was actually wearing an Apple Watch and transmitted possible evidence of his death. So if this is true, they could find the Apple Watch or at least some GPS location on where he is. This could be really bad for all the communications in the United States and Saudi Arabia. I mean, we already have so many businesses cutting ties, including Virgin with Richard Branson. You have Ariana Huffington from the Huffington Post, and among many others, the World Bank. They're all cutting ties with Saudi Arabia. If WWE goes through with this, and it's been all over Twitter, we actually put a poll up on our Twitter page at SCPB Podcast where we said, what should WWE do? Go on with the show, wait for the details, or cancel it. And it was blown out of the water. I think like 71% said...
Yeah, overwhelming.
Overwhelming. 71% said to cancel the show. If you're WWE right now, do you cancel Crown Jewel?
I don't know. I think the right move is probably to cancel. And again, we don't need to dive too deep into the politics, but WWE's last show that they did in Saudi Arabia, we already know that there were people within the organization, meaning the WWE, that were critical of the fact that they were putting on such a big show in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a country where there are a lot of, I guess you can call them rights violations in comparison to what we have here in the United States. They aren't afforded certain freedoms. Much of that can be based around sex. And again, we don't have to, and male or female, but we don't need to dive too deep into that. But Corey Graves actually put a tweet out, something to the effect of the fact that they weren't allowed to have female wrestlers, I believe, on the card. And you'll notice on Crown Jewel, the same thing. So female wrestlers cannot go there and perform in Saudi Arabia. So what's the right move for the WWE? It's tough because I know they have something like a 10-year contract in place, right? With the Saudis.
Right. And not only that, this is a $50 million contract. So they're putting a lot of money off the table here. And not only that, if they pull away from Crown Jewel, they could potentially be sued. I don't know what the terms are in the contract where, something like this causes a break in the contract and they could get away with it without any liability. But WWE is really in a rock and a hard place because all the money that they lose if they don't do it, but the PR backlash that they'll get if they go through with it. And there's already backlash, as you mentioned before, because of the fact that the women can't wrestle there. And they kind of padded that with Evolution in a way. But at the same time, with this news about Khashoggi, I mean, you got to find, at least WWE is being proactive in finding a backup plan. Yeah. I've heard a couple things. Meltzer earlier today or late last night said that they could potentially move DX and the Brothers of Destruction to Survivor Series. I've also heard that they might move the show to the United Kingdom. And one thing that really has to be talked about here that I don't think is really getting the recognition or the media attention, you have the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who is a member of the WWE Hall of Fame, has hosted multiple WrestleManias and has been in multiple WrestleManias with Vince McMahon. You have Linda McMahon, Vince's wife, who is the head of the Small Business Administration, part of Donald Trump's cabinet. And Kane, who is in this supposed main event at Crown Jewel, just was elected mayor of Knox County. So there's definitely some political influence in this decision.
Yep.
Think of the backlash that Trump can get, that Linda can get, that Mayor Kane can get if this goes through. And Vince really should be listening to those three people in the next week or so before definitely saying this is happening or not happening.
Yeah.
Is AJ Styles the best WWE superstar since Shawn Michaels? Click the video on the screen now to see what we thought. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications to see more videos on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. And of course, follow us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Listen to the full podcast wherever podcasts are available.